This video shows the recommended way of packing a Vivente World Randonneur. You'll need to find a quiet spot where you won't be in other people's way before you begin. The tools you need for this job are both a 4 and 5mm hex or Allen key, a 10 and a 15mm open-ended spanner, a 100mm length of 1/2 inch copper pipe, about 6 300mm zip ties, a rotor protector, some packing tape, and of course your carton. First up, in the case of derailleur bikes, is getting the chain on the inside cogs. The rear derailleur is a point of vulnerability, so you want it in close to the back wheel. Turn the pedals and adjust both derailleurs so that the chain is on the big cog at the back and the small cog at the front. Start by partially deflating the tires. I use the 4mm Allen key to do that, but you can use anything with a hard edge. Remember to put the valve caps back. Through the entire process, when you detach something and have a few screws in your hand, put them back on the component or into the frame, rather than in a bag where you might lose track of them. If you have trekking or riser bars, loosen the brake and gear levers a little so you can line them up with the handlebar extensions. This protects the levers later on when the bars are attached to the side of the bike. Remove the water bottle cage or cages. This is to prevent damage to the front hub connector later on when you tie the wheel to the side of the bike. Don't forget to put the screws back in the frame. Now we can remove the pedals. The left one has a left-hand thread. Pedals don't need to be as tight as people make out. Not loose, of course, but not so tight that you struggle to undo them. Remove the seat post and lightly retighten the screw so the seat post clamp can't fall off. Remove the 2 screws in the fork blades that attach the front mudguard stays. Remember to put the screws back into the forks. Now we'll remove the upper screw. Notice that this is much easier if the hex head end is at the back of the fork. Remove the mudguard entirely and put the bolt, nut and washer back into the guard bracket. At the front of the bike, if you have a front rack, you'll need to remove it, but we don't have one in this example. You can just leave the headlight hanging down for the moment. The rear brake housing is attached on the underside of the top tube in 3 places. Being careful to not harm the housing, remove the forwardmost C connector and return it without the housing to the same spot. With the wheel still on the bike, remove the front skewer. Slide the skewer into the copper pipe and refit the skewer nut to keep the pipe in place. Lift the bike away from the wheel and carefully insert the hydraulic brake caliper wedge into the gap where the disc rotor was. Make sure it stays there by itself. Now fit the pipe and skewer into the front fork dropouts. Tighten it as if it is a front wheel and lower the front of the bike to the floor. Now the fork tips can't punch through the floor of the box and will also give you a handy place to store the skewer. Next up is the handlebars. This involves the handlebar stem being removed and replaced by the 40mm of spacers. Start by removing the top cap, which is at the very top of the fork steerer tube. Rest it on the bench, then loosen the 2 screws that clamp the stem to the steerer tube. 1 or 2 turns is enough. Lift the stem up whilst holding the bike down. As you lift the bar assembly, also lift the rear brake housing and slip it over the top of the forks to have it on the right-hand side. Now, slide the spacers onto the steerer tube and then refit the top cap, only tightening it slightly to stop it from coming off. With the bike staying vertical and on the floor, and with the handlebar assembly still hanging on the right of the bike, gently rotate the front forks 180 degrees in a clockwise direction. Align the left crank with the down tube. Pick up the front wheel with the disc rotor away from the bike, with the front guard on top of the wheel, and find 2 spokes next to each other that are parallel rather than crossing, so as to give the most space. Fit the wheel over the crank and lightly zip tie it at the forward end of the left chainstay and the forward part of the top tube. When you are happy with the position, tighten the zip ties and probably add another one. Fit the disc rotor protector to the outside end of the front axle. With a bit of protective padding for the frame, locate, then attach the handlebar assembly to the right side of the bike. If you have drop bars, the drop or lower sections go through the frame so the stem is flat on the right side of the frame. Attach the front light with a zip tie. Remove the kickstand and put the screws back in the frame. Now, pack the tools, pedals, water bottle cages, and kickstand into a rear pannier. Place the seat top down at either end of the carton. Then lift the packed bike and lower it into the carton so that the rear wheel is just beside the seat. Hook the pannier containing the tools and bits over the top of the seat tube so that it hangs down on the right side of the bike. The best position depends a bit on the frame size. If you have drop bars, it's also a bit different. In the video notes are some examples. Now just seal the carton and you are done.